Singing and capturing what you're singing are two very different things. At least I've learned. Hi, I'm CARO J, I'm a singer-songwriter, and I'm currently DIYing my debut album. I'm recording, producing, and releasing everything from home, from here. At least I'm trying to do so. And in this series, I'm taking you with me on that journey of doing that by myself with at least not a lot of prior knowledge. So if you're curious how that will turn out, continue watching. Today will be all about recording myself. 3 years ago, my boyfriend gave me this microphone that I'm using right now. He said so I could record my songs so he could listen to it in the car. That was very sweet. And it was very, motivating to me that he was so enthusiastic about my songs and my music that he actually wanted to listen to it. So with full enthusiasm, I started recording some songs and edited a little in Audacity. And I had basically no idea what I was doing. I looked up some tips on how to make the audio sound good and found some things on adding compression and EQ and reverb, and I didn't even understand what those words mean. Audio engineering is this whole other complex field that I knew nothing about. And I also, to be honest, wasn't really interested in learning a lot about that. I just wanted to, sing and then sound like I was singing in the room straight away. That's just not reality, unfortunately. And it was quite overwhelming. I tried to look into it, but it's just super complex. So you either really need to dive into it or not. Just copying some settings you find on the internet is not going to work. So I was quite overwhelmed, and I tried to collaborate with some people who were already reading up on this, but then lockdown hit. So I decided to try and going into it myself anyways. And once I started learning more about audio, I quickly found out that even with better mixing skills, this mic wasn't gonna do it. It's fine for recording spoken word, but not music. The gesture of getting this microphone was priceless, but the mic itself is modest. So I bought this microphone, the Rode NT1000. I bought it secondhand, and it's a very good microphone, at least for, DIY home recording standards. So then I needed an audio interface, some headphones, cables, a microphone standard, and some acoustic treatment for the room. I'm not going too much into the technical details on how I set up my home studio right here, because there are other channels that do that way better than I ever could. I'm still learning a lot, and by no means something you should take advice from. I'm mainly here to share my experience. So now, sing! The setup was there, everything was set up in my home studio, but now I had to actually sing. And apparently that wasn't so easy for me. I felt super comfortable singing behind the microphone at home. I was all up in my head, trying to do it right away, thinking way too much about technique and not really feeling it, not really getting into the vibe of the song. And then I would practice and sound very good, or at least I think so. And then go behind the microphone and record myself and sound horrible. Well, horrible, I mean in tune and stuff, but no feeling, not the good tone, not the good vibe. I was singing but not making music. And in hindsight, that didn't really make sense. I was so worried about having the right technique right away and having the perfect take, in one take. Well, I could actually just play around with it and see what works. I mean, that's one of the biggest benefits of doing this all DIY at home. I'm not paying a studio per hour. I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. But perfectionism, fear, anxiety, good old friends. It also didn't help that the song that I started with recording, What If, the chorus of that song wasn't really working at the time. I changed the melody later and now it works way better. But when I was recording it, it wasn't really working. and from a songwriting perspective. So it also, of course, wasn't working like in the recording, and it was quite difficult to sing and not really suiting my voice. So it also would have helped if I started with some simpler songs and maybe not start like officially recording something right away, but just like played around a little. So fast forward a year to now, I started to feel more comfortable behind the microphone, but I'm still like trying to work on that, like getting in the right vibe, like imagining what I'm singing about, because I'm looking at the wall here with the foam on it. Not very inspiring, but like still I've improved in that, a little less anxious. I still judge my own voice differently than I listen to other voices. Like I'm way harder on my own vocals. I don't use like the same standards on myself than onto others. I think something many people are struggling with, like not just with singing, but like in life. But now that I've started recording, like when I'm listening to the recordings, yeah, it's just very difficult to stay objective when it's your own voice. And if you're also doing the editing and mixing yourself, that's difficult because you need to kind of step back and think, what if this was someone else's vocals? And that's just difficult because your voice is so personal. And you hear it when you speak, of course, and it sounds differently. And when I hear myself singing, I also feel it. Because I know what it feels like to sing that way because it is my voice. Yeah, that's just a very different experience than mixing and editing someone else's voice. I also learned a lot about my voice when recording it. Because in a production, you hear everything. Everything. And I'm not just talking about mistakes. Well, it is true that in a recording you can't get away with little mistakes, while in a live performance maybe you can, because, you know, life goes on after that little mistake. But in a recording, like, it's there forever. Well, that sounds a little dramatic, but it's there to stay. But even like without mistakes, there are many ways to make it better. And I really got to experiment more with harmonizing with myself, because I could record in different tracks, use different effects on my vocals, experimenting with different vocal techniques, and really hear how my voice and characteristics of my voice interact with different instruments, which I really couldn't do before in that way. So the whole recording process, while being challenging in some ways, has really improved my vocal technique, my songwriting, my knowledge of my own voice. And of course now I have the recordings of the songs that I want to release. Some songs I've actually already released, if you're curious about the results. Please share your experience or maybe tips or questions in the comments. And if you're not a musician, have you ever thought about like the whole process behind the vocals you hear in the music you listen to? Let me know. Thank you for watching, and I hope you see you again in the next episode of DIYing my debut album.